That 8 ANC spokesperson Zizi Kodwa has condemned the violence that erupted at the second day of the party's 8th Eastern Cape Provincial Conference that saw 28 people injured. This as outgoing Provincial Secretary Oscar Mabuyane and outgoing Chairman Phumulo Maswale contested each other for the chairperson position. It's alleged the clashes started when factions clashed during the discussions of credentials. This led to delegates beating each other up with chairs and other objects. Voting has meanwhile started for the top 5 positions. Results will be announced at 10 o'clock this morning. ANC Deputy President Cyril Ramaphosa is expected to address the conference after the announcement of the results. Well, we now cross to our reporter Busisiwe Jemsana for the latest news from the conference. Very good morning to you, Busisiwe.
A very good morning to you too, Palisa, and it is difficult to keep track of the latest news as the story keeps on developing by the hour. And just about an hour ago, the latest was that voting is continuing inside the conference room, but now we can confirm that Advocate Mvuzo Notjese has filed papers challenging the continuation of the conference without some delegates with bogus delegates, as he has filed those papers. But to tell us more about what happened and what needs to be done moving forward, we are joined by an NEC member, Lindiwe Zulu. A number of people injured yesterday, and just before some were taken to hospital, the Congress had already convened again, and it was continuing. Some are asking why.
Well, let me start from the point that it's very tragic that we had to have the kind of incidences that we had, and it's very unfortunate that we ended up with people in hospital. That the African National Congress will always never feel good about, because that's not what the African National Congress is about. However, here is also the reality. Yesterday, the conference was terribly delayed. Even when delegates had already convened and the conference had continued, it was terribly disrupted. And the disruption then ended up with the comrades who had been patiently sitting there, waiting for the conference to continue, patiently waiting for those that were disrupting the conference to really heed the call by the leadership that was there to say, can we please continue the conference? And unfortunately, that's what happened. It was disrupted, and then the comrades who had been sitting there also got a bit upset with the fact that we were 4 hours into it and nothing was happening, and the disruption was continuing. And therefore, normally something like that would happen, the conference would stop, which did stop because of the challenges, and everything was cleared. And by the way, the sensitivity to those that were hurt was not left by the African National Congress and the leadership. We followed up on what had happened, and there was a team that had to deal with that. At the same time, the majority of the members of the ANC who were inside, who were rightful delegates, because I really must remove this talk about bogus delegates. We did not have bogus delegates. We painstakingly made sure that each and every member who was inside the hall was a member that was duly elected at branch level to represent their branches at Congress. It is for that reason that the conference continued, because the majority of delegates were in the hall. And the constitution of the ANC provides for what happened yesterday, that you check on how many delegates are there, you check whether you do form a quorum, and therefore the comrades had the right to continue with the conference.
And we were there, Minister Zulu, when the verification process was taking place for hours, and then the conference convened. But after the chaos, how did you see to it that everyone who was there was people who were there before, were people who were supposed to be there, looking at logistics, at the security breach that ensued when that chaos erupted?
No, let's get one thing straight. there was no security breach at the conference. The delegates who you saw who were thrown out by other comrades were the very same delegates that you yourself saw painstakingly being taken into the conference. So every member who was inside the conference was duly checked, security and otherwise. And as you remember yesterday, we spent hours and hours at the gate. The reason why we did that was because we did not want to be accused by anybody to have brought in delegates who were not supposed to be at conference. So there were no bogus delegates at conference. The comrades who ended up being injured, believe me, were part and parcel of the conference, having also properly been processed through to be part and parcel of. The issue here is when we have a conference or a Congress of the African National Congress, there are certain expectations out of each and every member which are guided by the rules of conference, which are usually adopted as the rules. And therefore nobody has got the right nor the authority to actually delay a conference, because comrades started singing endlessly, started being really abusive to both the leadership that was there and the other comrades who were in majority, who sat there very painfully and painstakingly waiting for them. The conference continues on the basis that we're following the constitution of the African National Congress. We're sorry about those that really got hurt, because that's not what we are about, and we have to deal with that as leaders of the African National Congress.
Mr. Zulu, thank you so much for your time. That was the NEC member, Lindiwe Zulu, saying that they followed the Constitution. It is yet to be seen in the courts of law, as we know that as things stand, that Congress is being challenged in court. The story continues to develop, and we'll keep a closer eye on it as voting continues inside. We'll see if it stops or it continues, and what will be the outcomes and what will happen once this is brought in front of the courts. But for now, it is back to you in studio.